Hi folks, I'm Harshita Chaudhary and in this video we are starting with chapter 1 of class 12 geography, that is human geography. Now before we get into definitions, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that people don't live the same way everywhere? The work they do, the crops they grow, the employment opportunities they have, all of these things change from region to region. But why? Well, understanding this why is what this chapter is actually about. And once you understand that, geography stops feeling like something that you need to memorize. Instead, it effortlessly starts to make sense. And please don't make the mistake of seeing this book and chapter just as something that you need to study and ace your exams. Of course, it will help you in exams, but having an understanding of geography would also help you in knowing why opportunities, developments, and lifestyles differ across regions. And that ability to think spatially is useful in being a problem solver, and who knows, maybe one day you will end up becoming an entrepreneur as well. With that said, let's begin with our chapter. So, geography as a subject involves two categories. One is where we study physical features like the mountains, the rivers, and the deserts. We study how did they got formed, the variations in these physical features from one place to another, etc. This category is called physical geography, alright? However, the second category is human geography and it studies the interrelationship between the physical environment and the socio-cultural environment which is created by human beings with mutual interaction between each other. In this way, human geography focuses on how humans impact the environment, which can be seen in the construction of roads in difficult areas. Along with this, it gives us insights on how nature also impacts humans' lives. That is, the type of clothing people living in a particular region wear and the kind of cultural practices they have. Now, moving forward, the interaction between humans and the nature isn't unidirectional. Instead, it works both ways, meaning that nature plays a major part in influencing humans' lives, and humans too influence nature in many ways. In order to understand how they do influence each other, geographers came up with two terms: naturalization of humans and humanization of nature. Two examples from the NCERT will help you better understand these two terms. Let's begin with the first example, and that is of Benda. Benda lives in the forest of central India. Here, his community practices shifting cultivation, eats forest produce, and worships the spirit of the forest, thanking the spirit to provide them with food, water, and other produces. In this way, his food, farming style, and beliefs are shaped by the forest, which is a part of the nature. As you can see in this case, nature is influencing the life of human beings. Hence, in Benda's case, we can say that naturalization of humans is taking place. Now, let's take a look at Carrie's lifestyle. She lives in the freezing wintry climate of Trondheim in Norway. Due to harsh winter, very little grows in here. But unlike Benda, who was eating what the forest offered, Carrie doesn't simply limit herself to what nature offers. Instead, she eats tropical fruits imported from the warmer regions of the world. Also, instead of practicing shifting cultivation and living in a tribal village like Benda, she works in a heated glass dome building and drives an insulated vehicle. So, in this case, Carrie is influencing the nature, asking it to redesign itself so that nature can meet Carrie's needs. So, in this case, we can say that humanization of nature is taking place. But in the starting of this topic, I had told you that this interaction between humans and nature works both ways. It goes in both directions. So now an important question arises. Who is more powerful in this kind of interaction? Is it the nature or is it the humans? Well, geography scholars earlier believed that nature was dominant because human beings were still primitive, meaning that they didn't have much knowledge about technology or innovation. Due to this, they relied heavily on what nature offered them in terms of food, clothing, or shelter. And in this way, humans viewed nature as a god who provided them resources to sustain their lives. And hence, humans earlier worshipped and feared the nature, which could be seen in Benda's case, right? Therefore, that the type of interaction between primitive human societies and strong forces of nature was called environmental determinism. Later, with time, humans were able to develop technology with their understanding of natural laws. For example, the first time a human was able to light a fire was when he rubbed two phosphorus rocks together, which led to the generation of friction, and this friction developed heat, which could lead to the ignition of the fire. As we humans understood these natural laws like heat and friction, we later could develop matchsticks, cooking burners, etc. Simply, similarly, with the better understanding of aerodynamics, we could develop faster planes. In this way, instead of relying on nature for sustenance, humans use the resources obtained from the nature to create newer possibilities, as seen in Kari's case. Therefore, the type of interaction between advanced human beings and primitive nature is called possibilism. But is it okay to say that nature was dominant earlier and now human beings have replaced nature's powers? Actually, according to a geographer named Griffith Taylor, the answer to this question would be a big no. Because Griffith Taylor introduced the concept of neo-determinism, which states that neither is there a situation of absolute necessity nor is of absolute freedom. This meant that we are no longer in a phase where humans have to entirely depend on nature for their sustenance, and neither we are in a stage where we can exploit our knowledge of technology and innovation, because when we will use technology to over extract natural resources, that will cause tremendous harm to the nature, right? So here Griffith Taylor tried to give us a middle path between possibilism and environmental determinism. Now, at this point, some of these concepts may start feel like they are overlapping each other because the textbook discusses them one after another without clearly separating their levels. So, before we move ahead, let me help you differentiate them properly so that you don't get confused while writing your answers. Okay? So, environmental determinism, possibilism, and neo-determinism were theories. In these, geographers were mainly trying to understand how humans and nature influence each other, whether nature controls humans or whether humans control the nature, or whether both work within their limits, as suggested by Griffith Taylor. But geography as a subject did not stop at this debate. Over time, the discipline itself evolved. Geographers began studying different aspects of geography in different historical phases. So now we will understand how geography evolved further through its various stages, where the method and focus of the subject kept changing with time. The first stage here is the colonial period, which was emphasizing on the exploration and description of the places. So, as the name suggests, it started during the colonial period because here geography was closely linked with imperial expansion. Here, the European powers wanted to control new territories and expand trade. So, explorers traveled to unfamiliar regions like India as well, because India was a colony once. So, geographers then carefully recorded detailed descriptions of these areas, their landforms, climate, people, resources, and how they can reach here. This stage of geography was mainly about recording and observing new places. Then there was another approach to see geography that developed in the later stages of colonial period, and it was called regional analysis. Here, the geographers moved beyond simple description and began studying entire regions in a more organized way. They believed that to truly understand a place, one must study all its aspects: physical features, the kind of economy they have, the culture that they are practicing, and the amount of people living in there. All of these are needed to be studied together. This approach treated each region as a unique combination of many interconnected elements, right? Then in 1930s, areal differentiation developed. Here in 1930s, the geographers focused on understanding what makes each region different from others. This approach, known as areal differentiation, aimed to identify the distinctive characteristics of places and explain why one is unique and the another isn't. The emphasis was on organizing diversity across space. For example, the desert in Sahara is different from what we experience in India, the Rajasthani Thar Desert. The Alpine mountains are different from the Himalayan mountains. So here the emphasis was on seeing what is it that makes these two mountains different from each other. Why the Himalayas exist in the area of Nepal and India and why not in Europe. Eventually, from the late 1950s onwards, geography became more scientific and data driven. With the use of statistics, mathematical models, and computers, geographers began analyzing spatial patterns more systematically. This phase, known as the quantitative revolution, focused on identifying measurable and mapping patterns in human activities, such as the distribution of population in a place or the availability of transport networks in a region. Later in the 1970s, many scholars felt that geography had become too technical, too number oriented, and this has led to detachment from the real human problems because human problems are subjective in nature. This dissatisfaction led to the emergence of new schools of thought, namely humanistic, radical, and behavioral school of thought. Together, these schools tried to make human geography more people oriented instead of just reducing it as a study of places. Finally, by the 1990s, geographers began questioning the idea that one universal theory could explain all human conditions. Postmodernism was the time here, and it challenged broad generalizations and argued that reality is complex, diverse, and shaped by multiple perspectives of those who live in diverse regions. Okay, so in this way, this part of geography, this development in geography emphasized on knowing about the diverse experiences of people living in different places across the world. So earlier, what used to happen was whatever the West, whatever the developed countries are saying was considered as true. But now, the geographers and the geography experts from different regions of the world, they came on the world stage to share about their observations as well. Now, it is a matter of fact that humanities subjects, whether it is geography or political science, are interconnected. And geography is also interconnected with other discipline subjects of humanities. So, in this segment, we will try to understand those interconnectedness and we'll try to take a look at the sister disciplines of geography. But this table that I'm going to share with you is not meant for rote memorization, so please don't worry about that. And instead focus on seeing how geography is interconnected with other disciplines of social science. So in the table that you can see in front of you on the screen, the first row shows the major branches of human geography. These include social geography, urban geography, political geography, population geography, settlement geography, and economic geography. So these are the broad areas through which we study different dimensions of human life in geographical places. Okay. Moving forward, as knowledge expanded, each of these branches developed specialized areas. For example, under social geography, we have subfields like behavioral geography, cultural geography, gender geography. So here in the social geography part, we are not just studying the population distribution. We are also seeing how the population of a particular region behaves, what kind of culture they have, how well is the other gender, that is women, are treated in that particular region. This means social geography does not just study society in general. Okay, as I told you, it studies the behavior, it studies the historical processes from a spatial perspective. So whenever I use the word spatial, just try to understand that spatial and place are synonymous to each other. Okay, now this is going to be the most interesting and important part for you. Human geography does not function in isolation. It interacts with and borrows concepts, theories, and methods from its sister disciplines. For example, cultural geography studies how people's culture interacts with the environment, like how a river shapes local traditions. But anthropology studies culture more deeply, including the social practices, the income, and the level of development of the people of that particular region. Then medical geography looks at where diseases occur and how environment and population affect its spread. But epidemiology focuses on the patterns and causes of the disease itself. Are you able to understand the difference? They are similar, but they are not the same. They are having interlinking things, but still they are studying and focusing on different aspects of those things. So, just like these, population geography intersects with demography, economic geography intersects with economics, and urban geography interacts with urban planning. And now let's come to the last topic of this video. While we were talking about evolution of geography, I had told you that in 1970s, geography started to focus on analyzing the socio-political reality of humans across places. And in order to do that, the geographers developed three schools of thought in the field of human geography. These aimed at enhancing the socio-political life of people because by this time, geographers wanted to study how the presence of human factors like the political development, social structure, etc., are influencing human lives. The first one is the humanistic or welfare school, which focuses on the social well being of people. It looks at how life can be improved through basic needs like housing, health, and education. The idea here is simple: if people's day to day needs are met, their quality of life improves. Then the radical school of thought, on the other hand, goes deeper. It says that improving housing, health, and education is not enough if the root causes of inequality remain. So here it draws in Marxian theory, saying that poverty, deprivation, and social inequality must be addressed first, because only then we can bring improvements in housing, education, etc. for everyone. Otherwise, these developments would be just superficial. Finally, the behavioral school reminds us that people experience space differently. Different social categories based on their ethnicity, race, or religion perceive and live in the same spaces but in very different ways from each other. They have a unique kind of living. That means there is no one size fits all solution. Removing poverty or providing houses is important, but truly to improve well being, we also need to understand people's unique and social cultural context and then respond accordingly. With this, we have come to the end of the chapter. And before leaving, I wanted to say, if you have any feedback or suggestions regarding my teaching style, or if you have any other doubts regarding what I taught you today, then kindly leave your doubts or feedbacks in the comment section below. Thank you and have a nice day.